Merry Christmas everybody and welcome to the Family Fudge. In today's video, I'm sharing a bunch of super quick and easy Christmas treats for my favorite time of the year. Some of these recipes are old family traditions, some are brand new and seriously addictive. Lots of them would make great gifts for friends or neighbors, and best of all, they're fun for kids to help you make. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And with all that being said, let's get on to the Christmas treats. Okay guys, I'm kicking things off with the viral candied cranberries. I made these for the first time recently, and since then I've made several more batches because they're just that good. Now I've seen a bunch of different ways to make these, but here's how I like to make them. And I am making a double batch here, but you could easily cut this in half. So I'm using 2 bags of fresh cranberries. I'm just gonna give these a rinse, and I'm going to look them over just to make sure there aren't any questionable ones. If there are, I'm gonna pick them out. Next, I'm going to add 2 cups of orange juice, and then these are going in my fridge for at least a couple of hours, or you could even leave them overnight. At this point, I'm going to strain out the orange juice, which I definitely want to save for a drink later. And then I'm going to add these to a larger bowl. And that's because for the next step, I'm adding 4 cups of powdered sugar. And I'm going to give this a big stir until all the cranberries are coated. Now all I have to do is dump these onto a baking sheet, and these are going in the oven at 250 for just about 7 to 8 minutes. Once these are out of the oven, I'm gonna let them cool down, and that powdered sugar on the outside creates a crunchy coating, which is so good. These come out sweet but also tart, and would you listen to that crunch? I highly recommend you give these a try. Next, you know I have to include my favorite Christmas fudge recipe. This one could not be easier, and if you are a fan of chocolate and peanut butter, you're going to love it. Now, because this fudge comes together so quickly, I'm gonna need to start by prepping my pan. This is a 9x13. I'm going to line it with parchment paper, and I'm gonna spray it with nonstick spray. Next, I'm moving on to the peanuts. I'm gonna chop up 1 cup of salted peanuts, and I really do like the salted ones in here because that salty and sweet goes so well together. For this next part, I'm going to need a microwave safe bowl, and I also have Griffin as my helper. In our bowl, Griffin's gonna add 1 bag of milk chocolate chips because that's what my kids prefer, but you could use semi-sweet if that's what you like. Next, he's gonna dump in that sweetened condensed milk, and I'm gonna help make sure we get all of it out of the can. Now this goes in the microwave for just 60 seconds. Then I'll take it out, give it a stir. I want the chocolate chips to be completely melted and smooth. Now to this, we're gonna add in 1 cup of the chopped peanuts and just 2 cups of mini marshmallows. Now at this point, you're gonna need some muscle to stir it all together. This gets really thick really quick. We're gonna spread this out onto our pan. Then we're gonna top this with plenty of mini peanut butter M&Ms and some Christmas sprinkles. Now I'm gonna set this entire pan in the fridge for about 1 hour, and after that I'm gonna cut this into small squares. This fudge has such a great balance of both salty and sweet, and they would make a great addition to any cookie exchange. Okay friends, if you love cookie butter, then you should definitely give these 3-ingredient truffles a try. Now these might look fancy, but they're actually so easy to make. Now Lily's gonna start by adding an entire sleeve of Biscoff cookies to our food processor, but if you don't have a food processor, you can definitely crush these up in a Ziploc bag. Now before I add the next ingredient, I'm gonna take a couple of spoonfuls of this out to save for later. And then the next thing I'm going to add is 5 ounces of room temperature cream cheese. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that in. And as you can see, it forms a nice dough. Using my cookie scoop, I'm gonna scoop out little balls, and then Lily's gonna help me roll them. Now once that's done, I'm gonna pop these in my refrigerator for just about an hour. Once they're nice and cold, I can go ahead and melt the white chocolate. Now I really like to use this type because it melts so nicely, and then I'm just gonna take one of these at a time. I'll dunk them in the white chocolate and I'll tap off the extra chocolate. Then I'll place them on a cookie sheet to harden. Now once I have them all dipped, I'm going to take the little bit of white chocolate that's left over, I'm going to add it to a Ziploc bag, and then I'm going to add a drizzle onto each little truffle. Then I'm going to very quickly sprinkle on some of the cookie butter crumbs that we saved before. These go back in the fridge for another 30 minutes or until completely hardened. Now I love that these have a gingerbread vibe without that super sharp gingerbread flavor. Now, believe it or not, but some people in my family prefer butterscotch over chocolate. So next I'm putting together some marshmallow butterscotch clusters. Now the first thing I need to do is measure out about half a cup of pretzel sticks, and I'm going to chop these into smaller pieces. Next, in a large bowl, I'm going to add 4 cups of Chex cereal, followed by the chopped up pretzels, and then I'm also adding 2 cups of mini marshmallows. Now I'm gonna set this aside, and in a microwave safe bowl, I'm going to add 1 entire bag of butterscotch chips, followed by half a cup of smooth peanut butter. Now the thing about butterscotch chips is that they can burn easily. So when I add this to my microwave for 1 minute, I'm only gonna use 50% power. Now if you don't have that capability, you can just microwave this for 30 seconds at a time, and you're gonna wanna stir it in between each interval just to make sure it gets evenly melted and it doesn't burn. Now once this is nice and smooth, all I have to do is pour it all over the cereal and the pretzels and the marshmallows, and then I'll stir to combine. These little clusters have such a great combination of the buttery butterscotch with the salty and the sweet, and of course the marshmallows help keep these nice and gooey. I'm just dropping these into tiny clusters, and then I just pop these in my fridge for about 20 minutes or until they're set up. Definitely make these for the non-chocolate lovers in your life. This next one is not only tasty, but it's also super cute and festive. I remember making these wreaths when I was a kid. I'm going to start by adding 5.5 cups of cornflake cereal to my bowl, and I do want to go ahead and crush these up slightly. Now I'm going to set this aside and move on to the butter. In my pan, I'm going to melt 1 stick of salted butter, and I'm going to cook this a little bit longer until the butter has browned. I love brown butter. It gives any recipe sort of a nutty, caramely flavor. Once the butter has browned, I can go ahead and add in 5 cups of mini marshmallows. Once those are melted, I'm going to turn off the heat. Then I'll add in half a teaspoon of vanilla and half a teaspoon of green food coloring. Now I'll add this to the cereal and mix it all together. Next, on a parchment-lined cookie sheet, I'm going to drop spoonfuls of our mixture, and then with my hands that I've sprayed with non-stick spray, I can go ahead and shape these into wreaths. And lastly, to finish these off, I'm going to add just a couple of mini red M&Ms. Now, when I was a kid, we actually used little red cinnamon candies, but I'm not a big fan of those these days, so M&Ms it is. Now, these do take about 10 to 20 minutes to harden up. This is definitely a fun one for the kids to help you make because it's kind of like a recipe and a craft all in one. Now, some people call this next one cracker toffee, and some people call it Christmas crack. But either way, this next treat is a crowd pleaser and it makes a lot, so it's perfect for sharing. Now for this recipe, you're gonna need some saltine crackers, and I'm just gonna line them up on my baking sheet that I've lined with some parchment paper. Next, to my pot, I'm adding 1 cup of butter and 1 cup of brown sugar. I'm going to cook this on medium-low until it's melted and nice and smooth. Then, once this begins to bubble, I'm going to cook this for 3 more minutes, but I'm going to stir it constantly. Next, I'm going to very carefully pour this all over the crackers. I'll go ahead and spread that out just a bit, and then this is going in my oven for 15 minutes at 325. Once this is out of the oven, I'm going to sprinkle an entire bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips all over the top. And then I wait. I'm gonna wait exactly 2 minutes for the chocolate to melt, and then using my spatula, I'll go ahead and smooth out the chocolate. On half of this, I'm going to sprinkle on some chopped pecans, but then since not everybody in my family likes nuts, on the other half, I'm just gonna add some festive sprinkles. Once this is cooled down completely, after about 2 hours, I'm left with this. This is nice and buttery and crispy, and it is so satisfying to break into little pieces. One of my personal favorites, the sugar cookie in a mug. This single serving sugar cookie comes out so fresh and warm. It's super soft and thick. If you love sugar cookies, you've got to give this a try. Into a microwave safe bowl, I'm adding 1 pack of white melting wafers, or you could use vanilla almond bark. I'm heating this up in my microwave until nice and smooth and completely melted. And now it's time for the Oreos. I'm laying them out onto a parchment-lined cookie sheet, and my favorite flavor to use for this has to be the peanut butter pie, and you'll see why in just a second. Honestly, you could use other Oreo flavors if you'd like, but I really do recommend using a lighter colored Oreo like the vanilla or the peanut butter, and that's just to make sure you're not going to see the darker cookie through the thin coat of white chocolate. Before I place them onto my parchment paper, I'm just tapping each one gently on the rim of my bowl. That way, any excess chocolate can drip right off. Now at this point, I want to work quickly before the white chocolate hardens. First, I'm adding one of these super cute icing decorations onto each cookie. You can find these at Target or at Walmart, and I can usually find them near the gingerbread house decorations. They're basically like a big sprinkle, and those are going right in the center. Then quickly, I'm also adding some white sanding sugar onto each cookie, and that's to look like the snow inside of a snow globe. Now these are going in my fridge for at least 5 minutes to set up, and after that, it's time for the finishing touch. And this is where more peanut butter comes in. I'm taking one of these mini unwrapped style Reese's cups, and I'm using some leftover white chocolate that I added to a Ziploc baggie, and I'm essentially gluing 1 peanut butter cup to the bottom of each little snow globe cookie. Once the white chocolate has hardened, you can go ahead and stand these up. These little cookies are so simple but fun to make, and I think they turned out adorable. These would be perfect to bring to any Christmas cookie exchange. Next up, if you are a fan of treats that are both salty and sweet, then you're going to love this crock-pot Christmas candy. There are so many different ways you can make this, but with my recipe, they end up tasting like a Mr. Good bar mixed with a Crunch bar and a Reese's peanut butter cup. For this recipe, I'm using both white and chocolate almond bark. I'm adding in 1 pound of each that I've roughly chopped. Next, I'm adding 2 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips, followed by 2 cups of salted peanuts, and you really do want the salted ones. Next, I'm adding 1 cup of Rice Krispie cereal, and then 1 cup of smooth peanut butter. And you guys don't mix it at this point. And then this next part is optional, just to make sure that no condensation from the lid gets into my chocolate. I like to take a clean kitchen towel and wrap it on the lid. Now, I wouldn't leave my house with it like this, but since I've got my eye on this, and it only needs to heat up for about an hour, I'm not that worried about it. Now, this gets warmed up on low for only about 15 minutes, then I'll give it a stir and put the lid back on. And after only about 30 minutes more, the chocolate mixture is completely melted and smelling heavenly. My whole kitchen smells like melted chocolate. But you guys, at this point, you could also add in some crushed pretzels, crushed potato chips. You could add mini marshmallows, whatever you prefer. Using my cookie scoop, I'm going to scoop out the candy into little balls, and I'm adding those onto a parchment-lined cookie sheet. And then right away, I'm adding plenty of Christmas sprinkles right on top of each one. I like to transfer these into a fridge for at least 30 minutes to set up, but then after that, they're ready to enjoy. Crock-Pot Christmas candy is awesome because you really can switch out so many of these ingredients to make it your own. Personally, I love that combination of salty and sweet, and as you can see, this recipe makes a lot. You could grab a nice container and wrap them up, and they really would make a great budget-friendly neighbor gift. These next no-bake treats take me back to my Girl Scout days because they taste very much like Thin Mint cookies, but you actually use a Ritz cracker to make these. These are seriously some of the easiest Christmas cookies you can make. These are very budget-friendly, and you can make a lot of them in a short amount of time. In a microwave-safe bowl, I'm adding 1 pound of chocolate melting wafers. You can use milk chocolate or dark chocolate, whichever you prefer, and I'm just melting preheating mine in my microwave for 30 seconds at a time until the chocolate is smooth and completely melted. Now to this melted chocolate, I'm adding 1/3 teaspoon of mint extract. Now you could add more, but when it comes to mint extract, I think a little bit goes a long way. Now once that's completely mixed in, it's time to start dipping the crackers. I'm just using a fork to flip the cracker over just to make sure it's completely coated. And then again, I'm tapping off the excess on the side of my bowl and then placing each one onto a parchment lined baking sheet. Now before the chocolate has a chance to dry, you can go ahead and decorate the top however you like. I like to do a drizzle of chocolate. You could definitely add some Christmas sprinkles, but my favorite topping has to be these guys. This is like the traditional Andes peppermint candy, but it's actually a white chocolate version, and they have very strong peppermint flavor, but I really like them because they're soft to bite into, unlike a crushed up candy cane. Once I have all of my toppings on, I do like to set these in the fridge for just a few minutes to harden up, but after that, you can dig in. These thin minties are another super budget-friendly Christmas cookie that you can make. I love them because you only need 2 to 3 ingredients. And seriously, with that rich chocolate, the cool mint, and the crispy texture, these can become addicting. If you are a fan of thin mint cookies, you have to give this recipe a try. I'm making a double batch of our favorite crock pot hot chocolate. This hot cocoa is super chocolatey, it's creamy and delicious. I think you're going to love it. To my large slow cooker, I'm going to start by adding in 12 cups of milk. And like I said, this is a double batch because I want to make a lot. You could easily cut this in half if you don't need to make as much. Next, I'm adding in 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. This is going to make this hot chocolate super rich and decadent. Then after that, I'm adding in 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk. This is going to give this hot cocoa such a rich, deep flavor that you don't always get in other recipes. Now, I am a huge fan of vanilla extract, so I'm adding 3 tablespoons in here. And then last but not least, I'm adding 2 bags of chocolate chips. Now, both of mine are semi-sweet, but you could definitely mix things up by adding in some white chocolate, some dark chocolate, or some milk chocolate chips. Now, I'm gonna give this a good stir, pop on my lid, and then I'm gonna heat this up on low for about 2 hours. And I wanna make sure to come back every once in a while to give it a stir, just to make sure that none of the chocolate is sticking to the bottom of my slow cooker. You guys, this hot chocolate smells so good. And before I serve it, I do like to give it a final stir. And you guys, leftovers of this hot chocolate are perfect stored in the fridge, and then you can just reheat it as needed. I made such a big batch, so we're gonna have some for going to see Christmas lights, we're gonna have some for Christmas Eve, and probably still a little bit for Christmas morning too. And you guys, for this recipe, I'm going to need a lot of Christmas peeps. Now, I would love to know in the comments down below how many of you guys are fans of peeps. Today, I'm using a colorful combination of red stockings, green Christmas trees, with some cute little snowmen. So I've just lined my large baking sheet with the peeps. This is about 34 peeps in total. Next comes the Rice Krispies cereal. Now, I found this Christmas version at Target, but if you can't find these, regular Rice Krispies cereal will work just as well. Next, I'm adding a few more peeps to the top, and then in between, I'm going to be adding pads of butter. This is about 1 stick of butter total, because this recipe makes a lot of treats. Now, this goes in the oven at 350 for about 15 minutes, and I am covering it with some foil to make sure it doesn't burn. Now that the marshmallow peeps are nice and melted, I'm just going to mix it all together, trying not to spill it everywhere. Now you guys, these are looking so good. I do need to go ahead and set them aside though. I share fun and easy recipes on this channel every single week, so make sure to subscribe and I'll see you in my next video.